Hi guys and welcome. Is driver size directly related to its bass extension? The quick answer to this question probably is no, but let's get into more detail. So lately I've been watching a lot more YouTube speaker reviews than usually, and one thing I really noticed is that people and reviewers often think that a speaker that is bigger instantly reaches deeper and has more bass than the smaller speaker. Of course, often bigger speakers will reach lower than the smaller ones. Like for example, when you compare a 3-inch driver to a 10-inch driver, chances are pretty high that the 10-inch driver will also reach lower than the 3-inch driver, but even here there are some exceptions. And that's because a driver's bass extension isn't defined by its size, but by multiple different values or parameters which you have to keep in a good balance. Some of these defining parameters are, for example, the resonance frequency, or for example the driver's weight or the moving weight, and the excursion, the maximum X-max excursion, for example. So if you want to make a small driver or any driver go lower with more D-bass, you can, for example, increase its moving mass, but at the same time this will also cost you some of the treble extension and some of its efficiency. So you should slowly get an idea of how you have to balance things. You know, if you add weight, you will lose efficiency, but you will get a bit more bass extension and so on. Another misconception I often see is that people think that the bigger driver also instantly has more headroom and can play louder than the smaller one, which also is only right to a certain extent, because again, it's not instantly about its size, although size plays a bigger factor than with the bass extension when it comes to loudness. But still, it's of course also the excursion, which many people forget. If you have a small driver that does a lot more excursion than the bigger one, and both of them play the same amount of bass, the smaller one will probably be louder, as long as it's not like, I don't know, 10 times smaller than the other one, but I will name some more examples for this later on. But now let's get back to the bass extension. So if you have a 6-inch driver with 10 millimeters of X-max, a resonance frequency of 30 Hz, and a QTS of around, let's say, 0.45, and a 10-inch driver, which is much bigger, with 4 millimeters of X-max, a resonance frequency of 60 Hz, and a QTS of, let's say, 0.3, it definitely won't deliver more bass than the smaller speaker, despite having more than 2 times the cone area. And again, this is just related to the parameters you get with the driver. I even have 2 different drivers here which show exactly what I mean. So the small one right here is a tiny subwoofer, let's say, and thanks to its parameters it will reach below 40 Hz in a ported enclosure, which is really impressive for its small size. But at the same time it comes at a cost of the efficiency. I think the efficiency of this driver is below 80 dB, which is quite bad, so I would recommend using multiple ones of this. And then there's this bigger one right here, which of course has more cone area, so theoretically some people would instantly assume that it reaches lower as well, but it only does around 70 Hz and at the same time has an efficiency of around 86 dB. So you kind of get the idea. It's bigger, has more efficiency, but it doesn't reach as low due to the parameters, which are different than the ones on the small subwoofer. Still, like I said in the beginning, usually bigger drivers will reach lower than smaller drivers in a speaker you can buy, for example. And there's one reason for this. If you want to make a small speaker go low, you, like I already named in some examples, you have to sacrifice some other parameters like already mentioned efficiency, loudness, treble extension, and so on. So sometimes it's just too hard to keep the right balance with those small drivers, and it's easier to make a bigger driver go low and then, I don't know, use it together with a mid-range driver and then a tweeter, for example. Like you can see with a small subwoofer, there still are exceptions for this, because some driver manufacturers do actually make small drivers that reach really low. But like I said before, it's just hard to keep the balance of the parameters then. I have one driver that's 3 inches, it does around 33 Hz in a ported enclosure, which is really impressive, but it has an efficiency of slightly above 70 dB, and it's just nearly unusable for a normal speaker that you would want to sell and one that you would want to compete with others. So in this case, it's of course smarter to use a bigger driver, which then might even do less D-bass but just has a more normal efficiency. So it's all about keeping the right balance. To get back to the question of this video, in the end we can conclude that saying that a small driver always has less bass extension than the bigger one isn't theoretically correct, yet oftentimes it's the case because it's just easier to make a big driver go low than it is for a small driver. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I don't have much more to say. If you have any more questions, make sure to leave them in the comments. Yeah, this is the first video which I have made in months. Yeah, I'm really sorry for not uploading anything, but this also is the first video where I'm getting a bit more technical, since my interest also shifted to making speakers in the last few months, and I've been into those kind of technical things a lot more than I used to be, and I just want to share some of these things and answer some of your questions in those videos. So if you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like or subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this or some other stuff, like for example about the Devialy Phantom Reactor, which I got a few months ago and still didn't do a second video about. I will definitely make sure that I post one more video about the small Phantom, comparing it to another speaker. So yeah, until then, stay tuned, have a great time, and see you in the next one.